Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and Happy New Year and welcome to our program, the platform. On this program we look at a variety of issues with my good friend Bianca Nygard. Good to see you. Happy New Year to you.
Good to see you and Happy New Year, Mr. Jones.
And you are bringing good guests to us in 2020 as you did in 2019.
Thank you so much. These are your friends.
Yes,
I knew you'd be happy.
Absolutely. We've spoken to them on the topic of violence for years, and both of them have been doing a wonderful job in our community, giving us yeoman service in dealing with young men in particular. And so it is our pleasure today to have Dr. Carlos Reid, who is the CEO of Hope Center Bahamas. He's the founder of Youth Against Violence in the Bahamas and senior pastor at the Kingdom Summit. Good to have you, Dr. Reid.
Thanks for having me.
And also here, Dr. Eric Fox, who is the executive director of Teen Challenge Bahamas. And he's given me a whole lot of challenges over the years, in our interviews, I mean. We tease him all the time. Good to have you here.
Good to be here, sir.
You're doing well?
I'm doing well, sir.
Very good. And why did you choose to talk about violence today?
Oh, Mr. Jones, to tell you the truth, this holiday season was very tough on me. I was robbed twice.
Wow.
Twice. And as this happened, I was, putting it out there on social media, and so many other people came to me and said, I was robbed too. And they told me all these stories of what happened. And so then as I was looking at the social media, I came across them, and they were on a show that they had recorded and put on Facebook. And what they were saying was that the murders, they were talking about the murders had been so high, and it was over almost to 100 last year, I believe. And then when they were speaking about it, it had already been to 6 for the new year, I think. Three. Yes. And I don't know what it is now, but it seems like it's just increasing all the time. And I just wanted to really talk about what is going to be the solution on this, and especially having been directly affected in the last couple of weeks since I saw you.
Carlos Reid, we've been talking about this for years now.
Yes, sir.
And our young men, particularly our young black men, are still at risk. Are you making any progress in your various organizations?
I think we're making some, but we could be positioned to make even more. We are fighting a culture, and I wrote about it in my latest book. We're fighting a culture where the culture is that I have to earn respect. In the communities, I have to make a stand. I can't be seen as if I'm a little soft boy or a little sissy, we call it in the streets. So I am celebrated for being tough. I'm celebrated for being a thug. And this is the variations that we face. At home, the kids are celebrated for doing good things. But when they are on the street, in the community, or even in the schools, they're celebrated for doing the bad things. So it brings a confusing point to them. Who am I now looking for the celebration to come from? Either from my parents or the persons who say they care about me, or from the thugs, the schools, my peers out on the street.
And Mr. Fox, you've been working at it too for many years, and I know that you've made tremendous inroads, but how do you see the situation today after all of these years that you've been dealing with young teens in the country?
Mr. Jones, I decide to take like a little different approach, because with my studies and my experience, I've come to understand that the violence is a thing that is learned. You learn to be violent. You're not just automatically violent. And so I'm trying to more like sensitize adults on how do they handle situations in the front of their kids. How do they talk about people? How do they deal with people on the street? How do they deal with people on the job? How do they deal with their husbands and wives and siblings? How do you respond to them in the community? Because all of this stuff that spills over into the gangs actually originates within the home. So I'm taking, last year, I just did a count this morning, I had about 500 persons that went through my anger management program. Most of them are not gangsters. Most of them don't carry guns.
Right.
We have females just breaking up people's car, and then we have threats of deaths and constant abuse and attempted murder, and then causing harm, grievous harm, just basic assaults, insults and threats, and all these things happen, and as adults, they have a tendency to overlook this. I was on the street the other day and I was blocked up in traffic, and there's a lady who I know, and it was nowhere I could go, but she decided to roll down her window and curse me right out. And,
So we have a culture of violence in the country.
And you know, it's spilled over even to the workplace. I am now doing a lot of seminars for corporate Bahamas, because what we produce in the community is now going to the workplace. And there are a lot of people that don't know how to resolve conflicts. They don't know how to deal with anger issues. And now I was over at Sandals the other day in Exuma, and I was able to do a seminar for the whole staff, getting ready to do something down in Cocoa Key. You see what I'm saying? So we are now helping more corporate Bahamas as well on how to shift the employee mindset so they could be able to function inside the work environment. You know, we're seeing a couple of places, and I'm getting ready to do something with KFC right now, right, where employees are fighting behind the counter. You see what I'm saying? And it doesn't make it good for business. So the culture now is not just delegated to just the hood no more.
The hood, that's right.
It's everywhere. And we seen it happen in our school just a couple of days ago, where a young man took a knife to school, and he decided that he was going to show people who he was. That's a culture that he learned.
Yes, and so how did we get so far off? Because I remember, you know, the times where you could leave the door open. I don't know if this really happened in Nassau, because when I was young, when I was young, I remember our house getting broken into and stuff like that. But I always heard of those times, and I know in the family islands, you definitely could leave the door open and leave your car doors open, and everybody knew each other and everything. How did we get so far off where people aren't really watching out for one another? And in fact, I almost think that they're helping the criminal side on some of the times. You know, they're keeping the secret, and they're what happened?
Well, we cannot just talk about this violence thing without including drugs. Drugs is a big part of the Carlos can verify this. He's especially the gang back. Drugs is a big part of the gang culture. Most young men who are violent are smoking marijuana.
Stick a pin right there, and Carlos Reid has a book on the gang culture, and we want to talk a whole lot about gang culture. But let's talk more about violence and anger, how people became so angry. You say it's learned behavior.
Violence is learned.
Yeah, violence is learned.
But anger is an emotion that everybody has.
Yes.
Everybody get angry.
Now, what I teach that anger is an indication that there's some other problems going on.
Yes.
Like, for instance, if you drive in your car, the gas thing go off that you need gas. If you ignore that, right, you end up down the road catching a ride. It's the same thing. Anger is an indication that there's some other issues that are going on. Now, you'll find persons, and there's nothing wrong with anger. Jesus got angry. The Bible says, be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Never give place to the devil. It's a wonderful emotion that God has given us. And it's not emotion He's going to take away neither.
But you have to control your anger.
You have to manage it.
Right.
Yes.
See, anything that you don't manage can bring problems to you. If you don't manage your relationship, they're going to bring problems. You don't manage your money, you're going to have a problem. You don't manage your business, you're going to have a problem. One of the things that we have
You don't
not
manage
been
your body.
taught, you have
Probably you got a problem.
One of the things that we have never taught I don't know if you guys were taught it in school, but nobody never taught me how to deal with my conflicts and my anger. Nobody. They taught me everything. I learned about the Caribs, the Incas, the Mayas. I learned how they used to flatten the Caribs' head so they could shoot the bow arrow. But I never learned about the basic principles that I needed in order to be able to have a relatively good social life. You see what I'm saying? And one of the things that that influenced us, right, is basically from the slave plantation. You remember a theory that Willie Lynch had? Willie Lynch came up with this theory that the slave masters no longer had to beat the slaves in order to control them. He said if you could create or expose them to their differences, you'll turn them against each other and you will have them controlling each other. This is why the culture that we have in this country, we have not dealt with because this case is being passed down to us. We see people differences and we don't celebrate differences. We see differences as a threat. Because somebody might have a different color from me, I feel that I need to have an issue with them. If somebody's wearing a different uniform, that I'm thinking that's them and that's us.
Yeah, but gentlemen and Bianca, it has to do with education, right?
Exactly.
It has to do with how we are educated.
Exactly.
And if you are poorly educated or you are miseducated, of course you're not going to be able to deal with your emotions. Mm-hmm. It has to do with education.
Exactly. So do you think in this Bahamas right now that the educational system that we have is relevant to the kind of society that we are now living in?
Yeah, but education is more than schooling.
Exactly.
We're not talking about...
okay, because I want to stick up in there.
Because your education also begins from you are a toddler.
Mm-hmm. Education is what? Information, right?
Education is how you behave on an ongoing basis and what you learn over a period of time. And you are still being educated. I am still being educated. Yes. Some of the things that you are going to say today are going to educate me. Mm-hmm. And so from the cradle to the grave, mm-hmm. you are educated.
Yes, sir.
You are being educated all the time. Mm-hmm. And so the problem with the mismanagement mm-hmm. of anger and our violent behavioral problems, these have to do with the extent to which we have not been properly educated.
And we see a lot of violence and certain behavior are being modeled.
Yes.
You can say something or you can teach something, but it also has to be modeled because people learn, kids in particular, learn more from what they see than from what they hear.
Yeah, right.
And so if this kind of behavior is being modeled, that this is how you deal with situations, right? Or this is how you shout and scream or throw down things to get your own way. In their mind, they're saying that, listen, violence is a form of communication. One of the number one issues why persons respond with violence is the emotion called powerlessness. Most persons that become violent because they want power. A young man abusing a lady, he won't have power over her. That's why he's abusing her, to try to keep under control. A fellow who's shooting someone on the road, they want power. They want to take over certain turf. They want respect. But the problem with this is that when you're trying to get power outside of you, it's a never-ending thing because God never created us to have power over nobody else. And the power they're trying to get, they already have. Because the first place you need to take power over is yourself. You don't have no power when you try to shoot someone. You just lost power.
Right. You said something, Dr. Jones. You said something, right? You said that it's a learned experience. We all agree that it's a learned experience, so it comes down to education. Mm-hmm. You could be educated in a good thing, but not necessarily the right thing. Mm-hmm. See, the enemy of wrong could be good. Mm-hmm. But it's the right thing that we need to deal with. And a lot of people are learning things, but they're not learning the right thing. You see what I'm saying? Because the persons that are teaching them, I can only give you what I have. If I can only give you this phone because this belongs to me. So if I have not learned, how is it possible for me to teach you the right thing? So everything comes down to the source. We had a saying out one time ago, say that the coconut don't fall far from the tree. everything reproduces after its own kind. So when we look at the model that we're experiencing right now, it's because like the model that is producing the model that we don't like as not being refined or educated in the right things.
You know, you are a product of your environment.
So much.
Yes?
Yes.
And so if you are rowdy, if you are violent, you said it earlier, that's learned behavior.
It's learned. It's learned.
Came from the environment.
You find a lot of young men and women who are abusive. If you check their daddy and check their mommy, they ain't too far from there.
Look, we did a program.
Or the community in which they live.
Right. We did
Yeah.
a program called Shock Treatment. And as we interviewed the parents for a lot of this, I realized that it wasn't really the children that needed shock treatment, it was some of the parents that needed it because they were really producing what they were. And most of us don't like what we are, but we fail to change who we are, so we keep reproducing the same thing over and over.
It was interesting because, like, how when you asked why I brought them here today, and we talked about it's for the violence, but it started from me having been robbed. I posted a picture. My car was stripped. I posted a picture of my car, and this was right before Christmas. And so many people were so mad that my car had been stripped, and that's where their stories of having been robbed. But I was even surprised by what they were writing, like my close friends or something like, I wish we had a gun, you should kill them, do this, do that. And everybody's anger came out so much to the
Exactly.
point where I had to take down my post because I was just feeling all this anger. But
Right.
people are angry, and people are angry when you get robbed and then you give somebody the benefit of the doubt, or it was just that person. Now you got to protect your things more, and then it happens again. It happens again. You keep getting these blows. Then all of a sudden you become angry,
Right.
and here's where it continues and continues. And that's why I was wondering, how did we get so far from this, where before you could leave your doors open and everybody's like kind of singing and talking to each other, and this is how I pictured the Bahamas back in those days, and now it's like bars on your windows, lock up everything, make sure put your car up against the wall so they don't come and move your bumper and your lights and do this
Yeah.
and stay so protected and have a video camera and get a stun gun and do this and do that. And you're just like, everybody's kind of got to be like this. Like, I'm even feeling it. I'm even turning into, yeah, Mr. Jones, I'm turning in like this.
Gentlemen, you know, I hear your lament, your lamentation, Bianca. But we are an ill-disciplined society.
Yep.
It has to do with discipline and the level of civility. We've lost some values.
Yep.
And I think if we were to go back to those old values, I think we would be a better people.
Yeah.
Good manners is never out of style.
No.
No.
All right? But we have a whole lot of young people who are ill-mannered.
Yep.
It's not been passed on to them.
Yes. They will pass an elderly person and not speak.
Come in a room.
They don't know how to say, excuse me.
Good morning.
Or good morning. Or I beg your pardon. They don't even know how to say, I'm sorry, when they offend someone.
True.
All right? These are matters of civility.
Yes.
Okay? We are not a civil people. We are an ill-disciplined people. And you see the level of ill-discipline or people who are not disciplined all over our streets. People who will curse at you when you you don't move off the traffic lights
Yeah, penny road rage.
quick enough, all right? Or if you do not put out a signal or something, you know, they just are always in a rage. We need to calm this place down.
I think we don't have we have materialized a lot of material stuff, and now persons we not valuing people, and there's no compassion.
Become too thingsy.
We become too thingsy, and there's no compassion.
Yeah, that's one thing. But it doesn't have to do with self-respect, the extent to which you respect yourself so that you don't curse out somebody. There are a whole lot of people who are so disrespectful to other people, I believe, because they don't have self-respect. In order for you to for me to respect you, I have to respect self.
Well,
Right.
you can't
but
give
then,
what-
again, that's a learned experience.
And you can't
Because
give what
even
you
in
ain't
some
got.
of our homes, right? Even in some of our homes, people who go down the aisle in front of people and swear in front of God for better or for worse, for richer or poorer, they don't get along inside the house. So kids here, their parents, them cursing out each other, throwing disrespect. I ain't gonna apologize. So they believe that's the standard to live. You ride the streets right now after school, 3 o'clock, and you will hear these little young kids. They talking about primary school, man. Like I was riding through Coconut Grove the other day, kids from Yellow Primary, and you should hear not just the boys, the little girls, like shouting out profanity. You know, it comes down to what is the culture of this country.
But it has to do with self-respect.
Exactly,
People
because
who
that's
don't
what we
respect
were
self.
bred on, self-respect. You know what I mean? Having self-esteem, having self-respect. But when we look at the culture of the Bahamas, I believe that we miss who we are as a people. I went and I studied and looked up, like, what is the Bahamian culture? You know what I found out? It says Junkanu, that's what it says. That's our culture. That's not our culture. We have to be definitive about who we are as a people. We can only teach who we are. We only can teach what we know. And this is why we got to look at the whole system of the way people are being taught and ask ourselves, is this really productive or counterproductive? Because I learned that if you keep on thinking the way you always thought, then you keep on getting what you always got. If you don't get something different, you got to do something different. You don't get something that you never had before, then you got to do something that you never did. And I believe that we need to revamp the way we educate people, not just in the schools, people on jobs, even inside our homes. We need to take a whole different approach if we're going to shift this situation.
Hurt people, hurt other people.
Exactly.
We need, you mentioned education, right? But there's something called life skills training. Life skills.
That's part of education.
Yeah, it's part of education, but it's part of education, but it's skills that they would not, that you should have learned in the home then. You mentioned it. Skills you should have learned in the home. You find a lot of institutions are coming up now, how to be a success. How to be a success, right? That's good, but there's no one teaching people how do you handle failure. You might be a success, but you will fail.
Right.
You will fail.
Right.
So there's no one teaching them how do you handle when things doesn't go your way. How do you handle how do you handle debt? How do you handle if someone diss you? How do children cope with divorce? How do you deal when you are fired and you've been mistreated or misused
Or she tell you she don't want you no more.
abuse? All this. How do you deal? So what they do, they internalize all this stuff, right? And then they resort to what? They resort to some persons go and express violence to other people, or some express it on themselves. Some persons are not violent towards people, but they violent towards themselves. They take drugs, they drink, they go into depression, so they internalize it.
See, a lot of people hide their feelings, their pain, with violence. I had this situation where this mother brought this young boy to me. And she said, Mr. Reid, if you can't do anything with him, I guess can take him to the court and render him uncontrollable. I have this gift, nothing that I do, but God gave me this gift where people just feel comfortable talking to me. After 5-10 minutes inside my office, the boy said, Mr. Reid, I ain't bad, I say, no. He said, no, I ain't bad. He said, something happened to me when I was 7 years old. He told me that his father molested him when he was 7 years old. Now, here it was, this boy. He was about 15 at the time. Everywhere he went, he was fighting. But he wasn't fighting the boys that he was fighting. He was fighting his daddy, just that his daddy was too big, so he fought every image that represented his daddy. See, sometimes like we look at the symptoms, but we don't look at the cause. A fella told me the other day, he on crack cocaine. He said, man, I wasn't always this way. I said, man, talk to me. He said, man, I had a successful marriage. I was married. I had 2 kids, had a nice house. I had a construction business. He said one day he left home, this nice house, this nice family, he left home. And he went on the job site to go do some work. But he realized that he left the plans that he was working from home. So he went back home, and on the way up the stairway, the brother told me, so he heard some noise coming from the bedroom. So he took a baseball. When he opened the door, he saw his wife and his best friend, who was also his partner, in the bed. He took up a baseball bat and he beat the 2 of them. So he was sent to jail for 3 years. So, Mr. Reid, while I was in prison, I promised God I was going to do better when I come out. He said, but every now and then I hear the noise coming up the stairway. So here it was, he was using cocaine, not because he didn't have anything to do, but he was trying to hide his pain. He was trying to smother the pain. And the cocaine was the only thing that he felt that worked. I believe that we come to a place in our society right now where we got to deal with issues that people face. People are angry everywhere. You see down at the courtroom, you go down to the courtroom, which I frequent often, so does Eric, right? And the people out there that feel that they have been wrong, you'll see them out there, oh, I want to kill him, if I catch him. Everybody, here it is now. That person that they want to kill now, they felt they wronged them by taking somebody from them. So now they want to get even, just like Bianca said. Like she felt like she wanted to charge people because we like you said a little while ago, hurt people want to hurt people. We are hurting, so we hurt people.
Let's take a break. This is a rich program, and we thank Carlos Reid and Eric Fox for being here today. We take this break and we'll come right back.